Thought Leader interview series. I'm your host, Vicky Castori, with Packaging Technology Today. In this episode, we're exploring how consumer trends and automation are reshaping snacks, ready-to-eat meals, and case-ready meats. Carlo Bergonzi, product manager for tray sealing at Harpak-ULMA, is here to discuss how brands can stand out on crowded store shelves. Carlo, thank you for joining me.
Thanks for having me. We're seeing a lot of changes in the world of automation, so it should be a good conversation.
I'm looking forward to this. So, to start, to give us a little context, I know you've done a lot of research that we were chatting about at Pack Expo. How are people's eating and snacking habits shifting?
Yeah, it's a good question. There are a number of trends that have been developing over the course of the last few years, and many of them are primarily driven by younger generations. So the first is probably the lack of consistent three square meals a day. So think younger professionals, hybrid work, dual income households, no downtime to prepare meals. That results in convenience type items, ready to eat, heat and eat type options, snack kits that can be consumed on the go. The second, also driven by demographics, is more pronounced focus on healthy or high quality ingredients or functional ingredients such as gut health agents and primarily protein. So think high protein, protein content advertised, low sugar, transparent nutritional and origin information. And the third is the prevalence of GLP-1 agonists, which drive some very specific behaviors with regard to eating and snacking. So for us to consider trends, they have to be pervasive. It's a key criteria for influencing the market. And to give you an idea, 1 in 8 US adults have at one point tried or been prescribed a GLP-1 agonist. And that number is projected to grow to 1 in 5 to 1 in 4 by 2035 through enhanced delivery mechanisms and access through compounding pharmacies and telehealth platforms. So you might expect someone using a drug like this to reduce their overall grocery spend, but instead what we find is that those dollars shift. So the calorie intake reduces, but the dollars shift. So there's definitely a reduction in salty, sweet snacks and soft drinks, but an actual increase in protein-forward, nutrient-dense, portion-aligned items, oftentimes single serve. So what you have is this confluence of trends: smaller, single serve, portion aligned, protein forward, snack type kits that are convenient to pick up and eat on the go. And we're definitely seeing this through our customers whose snacking segments are up 15 to 20% year over year due to these trends and others. And during a time when other cyclicals like beef and red meat are down, we have fast food outlets reporting weaker consumer. So it's a great segment to lean into because of the profitability. You know, snacking kits tend to be higher margin for producers as well.
Interesting. And then, from your perspective, how are these changes shifting retailers' priorities?
Yeah, so from the retailer perspective, case ready and shelf ready packaging are, of course, very important. Easier facing and formats that cut restock time and prep labor are going to be prioritized. And these types of snack kits lend themselves well to vertical displays and pegboards. We're also seeing retailers really embrace things like film seal over traditional clamshells or snap closures. And that's driven by a number of things, but one of the most important is shelf life. So the vast majority of shrink and waste at the retailer is due to shelf life expiration. Many of these traditional clamshell style containers are not hermetic, so they're not capable of modified atmosphere. But with film seal, modified atmosphere, we can increase shelf life by threefold or more in some cases. And this really opens up a lot of opportunities for producers and retailers. But importantly, it cuts down on that shrink and waste substantially. Film seal can also reduce overall plastics by up to, anywhere from 20 to 50%, depending on the style of clamshell. And that also aligns with consumers' increasing desire for sustainable packaging. So we've definitely seen a shift in that data. When we started to see more sustainable substrates like paperboard and fiber become popular in Europe, virtually no consumers here in the US were willing, they all wanted more sustainable packaging, but they're not willing to pay more for it on a per product basis. But that number is steadily increasing. We're seeing some bigger retailers like Walmart start to convert items over to paperboard from plastic blisters. So that's another growing priority for retailers.
Interesting. And, when we were talking about the research you've done, we talked a lot about quality and freshness as top priorities, but also shelf appeal. So, how can brands improve their shelf appeal and boost their sales with new forms of packaging?
Yeah, we know quality and perception of freshness is really critical. It's a critical to quality criteria for retailers that we work with. And that can come in different forms. We have a variety of modified atmosphere solutions that influence product shelf life and product quality life, including the color of the product. And that really extends that period where that item is fresh and can be perceived as such. And that really is a big key. We know consumers are looking for those sell-by dates, and the perception of freshness in their minds is really going to be strongly correlated with that date. So modifies atmosphere is a huge key. And we actually find there's a lot of products out there where producers either haven't considered or were not fully aware of the magnitude of extension that they could achieve. So we're always trying to educate producers and retailers on the benefits of modified atmosphere. I mentioned the sustainable substrates as well in terms of standing out on the shelf. And one example, one of the retailers we're working with, they saw a 20% increase in sales just from converting a plastic salad bowl to a fiber bowl for a private label product. So there's an element of shelf appeal there, and that can oftentimes offset some of the increases in material costs that are associated with some of these more sustainable substrates.
Interesting. And then, consumers today want more variety, yet retailers want more customization. So, how can technology deliver that at scale without actually raising costs for the brands?
Yeah, so I think that comes down to flexibility of the equipment. I mentioned the prevalence of film seal and film sealing equipment can be very flexible in that sense. When you're not necessarily forming from a web or locked into a particular forming die or loading area, it's very seamless to change over to other products, in most cases without any real labor. Just requires a sealing die changeover, which can be performed in 5 minutes to move over to a different format, and you're ready to go. So that's with reference to inline tray sealing. So tray sealers can be a very flexible asset that allows basically rapid go-to-market with different products. We have some customers that run a dozen, not just different SKUs, but totally distinct formats on the same line. And so we're able to design the conveyance and the filling and dosing equipment in such a way that can accommodate many different ingredients or SKUs in different formats. And you mentioned cost. If all you need is a sealing die, it's relatively inexpensive to bring new formats to market with inline equipment. On some of the more advanced systems, for example, Mondini's Symphonia Smart Conveyance magnetic track system, we can have automatic and programmatic changeover between formats. And this simplifies it even more. We have one commercialization that runs over 70 different SKUs of a product, and all the changeovers recipe driven, completely programmatically. So, it's capable, it's seamless and without intervention, and there's no mechanical changes required. And we know how crucial removing labor unit intervention is. So it's certainly a trend that we're trying to facilitate.
That it was fascinating to see actually your demo at Pack Expo last fall. And another thing that we talked about was the whole issue of food safety and labeling transparency being so crucial. So can you tell our listeners a little bit about how smart systems are driving consistency and compliance in packaging?
Yeah, well, from an equipment perspective, we're doing a lot of label compliance with vision. So we can look at the container product prior to sealing or closing and confirm with neural net-based vision systems what ingredients are being packaged and if they comply with the recipe on the equipment and with the label and print information. And then verify again after sealing and closure that the label and print information comply with the recipe and the product after sealing and ancillary operations. So this is, it's critical from an allergen and food safety perspective, but also with what I mentioned earlier with regard to recipe-driven changeovers. When you have a lot of SKUs, we need to have a vision there for compliance checks just to log everything is done correctly. And as I said, we're using an artificial intelligence neural net for the vision system. So instead of trying to write code that would encapsulate for all the different defects or variations you might encounter, via machine learning, we teach the vision system what an allergen is or what a defect type is and what it looks like. So we can be sure all edge cases are accounted for.
It's fascinating what AI is going to do in the next few years. And then you touched a little bit upon sustainability, but can you dive a little deeper into the innovations that are coming around that are reducing food waste or the impact of single-use packaging?
Yeah, so from that perspective, or the food waste perspective, we know that shelf life expiration is the biggest cause of waste at the retailer. So all the things we talked about with modified atmosphere, shelf life extension is a big piece. In terms of the packaging, we like to look at sustainability in a few different ways. One is overall plastics reduction. So an example of that would be what I described with the conversion from to a film seal as opposed to a clamshell style container to reduce overall plastics. Another example would be, we have some technology in our VSP equipment called down gauge, where we're using specific types of cooling to allow for thinner gauges of rigid containers through the VSP process. So just reducing the total amount of plastics in general. The second way would be replacing those plastics with a renewable substrate like a paperboard, a press board, or a molded fiber. And we've done a lot of work in this area with our paper seal offering. And these tend to be much more prevalent in Europe, where we have a lot of activity in Europe around these substrates. But as regulations are changing, we're anticipating more adoption here in the US. And there are a lot of nice advantages to paperboard as well. Outside of sustainability, you also have the ability to put graphics 360 degrees around the container, which allows you to replace labels in some circumstances. We had a customer who, they had marketing info, preparation instructions, nutritional information, UPC code, other artwork directly on the paperboard container, which actually eliminated the need for the C-wrap label that they were putting on the plastic container. So that reduced the costs a little bit and helped balance out the material costing. Third way is to reduce trucking by taking advantage of denser shipments through on-site container forming. So that's our third avenue to achieve more sustainable packaging. So whether that's with roll stock or flat paperboard, you can reduce truckloads of raw materials to the producer, and oftentimes by a factor of 8 to 10 by basically weighting out the truck as opposed to cubing out the truck with materials. And then from the equipment side, we're very well positioned to help our customers take advantage of this, as well as the material cost reduction that can be achieved. So utilizing the Mondini platformer or the paper seal former, producers can create preform style trays and paperboard trays on site.
It's fascinating. So you touched a little bit on flexibility and like being able to keep up with changing tastes and retail priorities that are constantly evolving. Can you go a little deeper into how automation can help brands meet new demands and pivot production lines quickly if needed?
Yeah, I think the flexibility is important. I think being aware of where the market is going is important. Things like demographics or secular and structural and those types of things are not going to change anytime soon. So the biggest structural trend is the that we have is the lack of skilled labor availability and consistency for producers and retailers. We think automation is going to become increasingly important, and that is perhaps the biggest trend we can identify going forward, both short-term and long-term. So investment in automation is critical. But along those same lines, you have long tenured and skilled technicians and operators moving out of the workforce. So what we're also seeing from an automation perspective is keeping equipment simple from an automation and interface perspective. So think of intuitive HMI screens, more robust preventative maintenance programs, automated troubleshooting tools. We're even developing an on-machine LLM style AI chatbot that can help operators troubleshoot equipment, pull efficiency information and alarm information in real time in multiple different languages. So they can, they don't necessarily have to be an expert. So I think using automation to make the equipment more accessible to a less technical workforce is another big key.
It's going to make a huge difference to not have to be, to be able to communicate and have great HMI with your systems. So looking ahead, which trends do you think could shape the next wave of automation in the food industry?
So, at Harpak-ULMA, we believe artificial intelligence and connected smart equipment will shape kind of that next wave. I mentioned our on-machine LLM style chatbot for troubleshooting and that informational interface layer. But that also translates to predictive maintenance. So anything where we can increase the efficiency over time through artificial intelligence as well. And we know OEE, or overall equipment effectiveness or efficiency, how critical that is for total cost of ownership. And that's always what our end goal is, to reduce total cost of ownership for our customers. But another new piece of technology that we've been leveraging is smart conveyance. So an example of that is what we referenced earlier, the Mondini Sinfonia, the magnetic track system. Specifically, it's a linear motor-based track system. So we use a linear motor with electromagnetic coils that propel shuttles around a track in a way that's very highly programmable and precise. So these types of systems have been used with success in a lot of different industries, but we're seeing a lot more application in the packaging industry. And there are some significant advantages, systematic advantages of this type of equipment over a conventional conveyor. We can move one unit with respect to each other in the system. So that movement can be dynamic. We can ramp up, ramp down, move continuously and intermittently at different sections in ways that optimize each function and process in the system individually, instead of compromising the motion of the conveyance in a way that's acceptable for all the different processes or functions in the system. So that boosts efficiency. Another significant advantage is we can have multiple paths or loops that allow multiple different order of operations that can be paired together in different ways. And then, of course, you have much more flexibility in the shape and the footprint of the system. And we know that footprint is at a premium now with such high utilization rates from producers, 85% plus. So this is a type of system that I mentioned earlier as well that allows for programmatic and recipe-based changeover. So it's newer to the packaging industry, but we feel if you can leverage it, what you're getting is maximum throughput per tooling footprint, maximum throughput per unit area of the system, maximum flexibility, optimized automation, and at the end of the day, maximum efficiency and lowest total cost of ownership.
Thank you, Carlo. You've shared a tremendous amount of information in a very short window of time. Are there any final points that you'd like our listeners to take away?
Yeah, I think we're focused on allowing our customers to leverage the next wave of automation. That's our forecast for the future, is that as important as automation is now, it's just going to become more so in the coming years. So We're just trying to position ourselves so we can help our customers take advantage.
Thank you for sharing your expertise with us, Carlo.
Thanks for having me.
You've been listening to Carlo Bergonzi with Harpak-ULMA. You'll find links to additional resources in the video description and at Packaging Tech Today. Thank you for watching.